The smell of dust and rusted metal filled the air the moment he stepped inside. A cramped antique shop on the edge of Fresno, California, the kind of place most people walk straight past without a second glance.
Cracked windows, a bell over the door that barely worked. But for Frank Delgado, this was sacred ground. He wasn't a rich man. He wasn't famous. He was just a collector. The way some people are just fishermen or just gardeners, quietly obsessed, endlessly patient, always hoping the next shelf would hold something worth the drive. He'd been doing this for over 20 years, driving out to shops like this one on weekends, digging through boxes other people had given up on. Most of the time, he found nothing. A chipped mug, a rusted tin sign, something to laugh about with Carol over dinner. But every so often, just often enough to keep him coming back, he found something that made the whole search worth it. He had no idea that today would be one of those days, and that it would turn out to be bigger than anything he'd ever imagined. Nothing on the first few shelves caught his eye. Chipped teacups, faded postcards curling at the edges, a drawer full of mismatched buttons and old keys that opened nothing anymore. He was about to call it a wasted trip. Then tucked in a corner behind a broken lamp, he spotted it. A cardboard box nobody had bothered to sort. Inside were photographs. Old ones, tintypes, stiff and metallic, their images ghosted by more than a century of silence. Frank had always been drawn to old photographs. There was something about a stranger's frozen face that felt like a locked door. You could stare at it forever and never quite get inside. He flipped through the stack slowly, one image at a time. Then his hand stopped. It wasn't the clearest photo in the box. It wasn't even the best preserved, but something about it refused to let him move on. A group of men stood outside a weathered barn, a few holding wooden mallets, mid-game, caught in a moment that was never meant to last 150 years. How much for the whole box, he asked. The shopkeeper barely looked up. $2. Frank paid without a second thought. He had no idea he was walking out with what some would later call the most valuable photograph in the country. That night, he set the tintype under a small magnifying lamp at his kitchen table, the same spot where he examined every new find before deciding whether it was worth keeping. His wife, Carol, wandered over with 2 mugs of coffee, more out of habit than curiosity. She'd seen this ritual 100 times before. Find anything good today? Maybe. Come look at this. She leaned in, scanning the blurred faces one by one. Men in dusty coats, wide-brimmed hats, a barn that looked like 100 other barns from that era. Then Frank went still. What? Carol asked. He didn't answer right away. He just kept adjusting the lens, inching closer, like the image might rearrange itself if he looked hard enough. For a second, he finally said, I thought I recognized someone, which is insane because that's not possible. Carol raised an eyebrow. She knew this look. She'd nicknamed it years ago his treasure trance, the one that showed up whenever he was convinced he'd stumbled onto something bigger than a $2 box of photos. Frank, this picture is older than your grandparents. I know how it sounds, he said, but look at the eyes, the way he's standing. It's familiar in a way it shouldn't be. Carol leaned in again, and this time she didn't roll her eyes. She went quiet, then quieter. Frank, she whispered. You don't think that's? He nodded slowly, barely breathing. Yeah, I think it might be. Standing in a dusty backyard, mallet in hand, was a face the whole country would recognize instantly if it turned out to be real. Billy the Kid. Until that night, there had only ever been one confirmed photograph of the outlaw in existence. One. A single tintype. So rare that a single verified copy had sold for over $2 million at auction. And now Frank was staring at what looked like a second one, showing not just Billy but what appeared to be his entire outlaw crew. Relaxed, unguarded, playing a long game like it was any other. Afternoon? If it was real, it wasn't just a rare find, it would rewrite an entire chapter of Western history. Frank barely slept that night. By morning he had a plan, and a long list of historians, appraisers, and collectors to call. The response was not what he hoped for. There's only one known photo of Billy the Kid. If you think you found a second, you're either wrong or trying to pull something. You're not the first person this year to tell me that. Door after door closed. Some replies were polite, others weren't. One collector told him flatly that he was chasing a fantasy, and that real historical finds didn't turn up in $2 cardboard boxes. Frank started to wonder if he'd let his imagination get the better of him, if maybe Carol's old joke about his treasure trance wasn't a joke at all. But Carol wasn't ready to quit. We don't need everyone to believe us, she told him. We just need one expert willing to actually look. So they kept digging. Nights turned into weekends, and weekends turned into months. They studied the photographic process used in the image, comparing it against known techniques from the same era. They compared the barn's layout and terrain to old ranch records, hunting for a match. They even researched antique croquet sets, trying to date the equipment in the photo down to the year it was manufactured. Every small detail felt like it might be the thread that unraveled the whole mystery, or the one that proved them wrong. Eventually, one door opened. A respected firm specializing in rare Americana agreed to examine the tintype in person.
The lead appraiser was polite, but far from convinced. An authentic second photo of Billy the Kid would be one of the great finds in Western history, studying the image under a bright lamp. People don't walk into that for $2.
Except that's exactly what happened, Carroll said. He laughed under his breath, but as the minutes passed, his expression changed. He examined the tintype's edges, the chemical composition, the clothing, the posture of every figure in frame. Finally, he set the photo down and admitted, "There's something here worth taking seriously." What followed was over a year of investigation. Forensic photography experts studied the image frame by frame. Researchers cross-referenced ranch geography from the late 1870s. Facial comparison analysis was run against the one confirmed photograph of Billy the Kid, and the resemblance held up. Then came a piece of evidence nobody expected, a handwritten diary from that era, belonging to a woman connected to the same outlaw group, describing an afternoon at a ranch where the men played croquet in the yard. The description matched the photo almost exactly. It's important to note, even after all of this, the photograph's authenticity has never been universally accepted. Some historians and experts remain skeptical, pointing out how difficult it is to confirm identity from a single blurred figure in a century-old image. Debate over the photo continues to this day, and likely always will. What isn't in question is the value experts placed on it, if genuine, appraisals reaching into the millions of dollars, and the wave of public fascination it set off, enough to inspire a full documentary exploring the evidence on both sides. For Frank, the money was never really the point. What kept him up at night wasn't the price tag. It was the idea that history could still be hiding in plain sight, waiting in a box nobody had bothered to open in over 100 years. "We could use a new truck," he joked in one interview, laughing it off the way he always did. "But honestly, we just want to keep looking." You never know what's sitting in the next box, because sometimes history isn't behind glass in a museum, carefully labeled and roped off.
Sometimes it's sitting in a cardboard box in the back corner of a shop nobody stops at, gathering dust between the postcards and the broken lamps. Waiting for the right person to walk in, take a second look.
Notice what everyone else had missed.